Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 138, Building Connection by Feeling More Confident in the Moment. As you know, this month, we are exploring the concept of healthy connection and how important emotional intimacy is to our relationships and to our well-being. If you haven't had a chance yet to listen to the most recent episodes, it might be helpful to do that, so all of this is so much clearer. Now, today I want to talk about making the connection real, meaning in the moment, and how so many of us struggle to feel confident and grounded enough to connect genuinely and to take relational and emotional risks in real time. So this is a problem for so many clients that I work with, and so many folks have told me over the years that it's when they walk away from the moment, they kick themselves and say, God, I wish I had said this or hadn't said that. So, right, you walk away from that difficult conversation. Either they confronted you or surprised you, or you were supposed to stand up for yourself or confront bad behavior or ask for what you need, or conversely, to say something really intimate and vulnerable, and you couldn't do that. And so you walk away, and like we just said, wish you had acted so differently in the moment. A lot of you have told me that then you start obsessing and you can't fall asleep at night because you keep running through the conversation in your head, what you said, what you didn't say, what they said, what they didn't say. And there's so much anxiety. And I think self-doubt and maybe some self-loathing around this stuff. So if you do that, it's normal. You have lots of company. I think it's because we're fighting ourselves. Half of us really wants to do the brave thing in the moment, and the other half of us just was taken by surprise, or just wasn't ready, or just got stuck, or, because we get hard on ourselves for not standing our ground. We become hard on ourselves when we don't take the emotional risk to be a better friend, to provide empathy, to tell someone how we really feel, what we're really thinking, what we really need, to be brave and maybe speak a dissenting opinion instead of just nodding our head and smiling. Oftentimes we'll go tell others what we wish we had said to the third party instead of telling the third party directly. We might complain or go through the whole scenario and play victim and can you believe she said that kind of conversation instead of taking care of ourselves in the moment. So if you're doing all that, again, very, very normal. So today I want to talk about what we need to understand conceptually first, and then what we need to practice. Because I think, and you've heard me say this before, there's two layers to it. There's the deeper clinical layer that we need to understand what's going on and maybe what needs to be changed at a core level. But then there's also practicing being different in the moment, changing habits. And in this case, changing habits of communication styles. We just talked about recently, intimacy means into me see. Like you're going to see the good, but you're also going to see what I'm not proud of, where I feel less than perhaps, where I haven't forgiven myself for things I've done or not done, my deep fears, my insecurities, my deep wishes. So the first thing we have to do is be intimate with ourselves. Like, am I okay with me first? And if I'm not, I want to take the responsibility of doing the healing work around that. I have to be separate from someone first to show up in the moment and feel glued together, to stand in my truth, and to be able to let them stand in theirs. So we have to make peace with ourselves first. Sometimes that's just compassion and self-acceptance. Other things like behaviors that we're not proud of or immaturity, we work on. We take responsibility for it and we work on it. We own if we're defensive. We own if we're emotionally immature. We own if we use humor as a defense. We own if we're very reactive and fear-based as opposed to thoughtful. We own all of it. So a lot of this today, I want you to think about all the work that we talk about over all the episodes matters. This is the moment. In the moment is where it comes into play. I think it's a culmination. The first big one is boundaries. We need to separate out what belongs to us and what belongs to others. Then only focus on what belongs to us. That's the hard part, because we have no control over what's theirs. We only have control over what we think, what we do, and how we feel about it. And then we're responsible for choosing and owning our choices and not playing victim. I personally think that a lot of boundary work is about coming to acceptance around what is, therefore being able to handle reality instead of wishing it were different. Usually the reality out there, trying to control people and situations and outcomes as opposed to acceptance of reality that we can't change. For example, let's say your partner doesn't seem to understand how their passive-aggressive behavior really hurts you so much whenever you have a disagreement. You want them to be healthier so it doesn't feel so unsafe, of course, because it is. There's nothing wrong with you wanting that. However, so you spend lots of time over-explaining and educating them about this, and it only makes things escalate because now, even though you didn't mean to, you come across as controlling and condescending. Since they have a lot of shame probably already that passive-aggressive people do, their response usually won't be pretty. And now it's just worse, and no one has gained anything. You know what I'm talking about? Where you walk away from the fifth argument about the same thing and nothing feels resolved? Because it can't when you're doing that, because you're trying to own it for them. You're trying to get them to see, get them to understand. Instead, we got to do the who owns what. Your partner owns their shame, their passive-aggressive behavior as a fear-based coping mechanism, the fact that they don't even want to acknowledge any of this, perhaps, because too much shame comes up when they do. They're not ready to look at it or get help changing it. That's where they are right now. Your work is first accepting that reality or grieving the oh crap, then therefore real fears around that reality. Like, what does that mean? Your hurt and anger that they won't. They won't look at it. They don't want to change. And then the real ramifications if they don't change. Because now you might have to end up having to make awful decisions, all of that stuff, because you must own your own fear-based control of trying to quote unquote get them to see or understand something so you don't have to sit in the reality that you're so afraid is true. So what do? First do the who owns what. And then we get into some reality statements for ourselves like, well, I guess if they wanted to understand, they would have. Or at least they would have tried in the moment with me. Next one, I never wanted this to be true, but there were signs in the beginning and I didn't want to pay attention to them. I figured I could change things. Or they would just magically want to grow and get better. We would grow together, all that stuff. So then when we get real, we practice the next part, detachment and grief. Detachment means you're able to detach with caring, we've talked about this before, from others' thoughts, feelings, needs, and choices. To respect and accept, not necessarily agree, that it's a good thing. Lack of detachment means boundary blurs and control in the relationship and tons of fear if there's control. In the previous example, we just talked about how you would say to yourself, just because I doesn't mean them. Just because I want them to want to change and to see the consequences if they don't, I have to respect that they may not want to or ever be able to. then I need to sit and grieve. I need to feel the hurt, the anger, the disappointment, not only in them, but in myself, to grieve what I wish was and work through the utter fear of what might happen or not happen. Boundaries and detachment mean we let go of what's going on with them and work to accept it instead of trying to change it. Then we sit with reality and try to change ourselves. So boundaries and detachment and grief, those things go hand in hand. We've talked about them many times on the show because they're so important. They're so central and they're so hard. I make it sound really simple here, but you can't do it alone, and it's a process. The other piece to being more confident in the moment is a big one, and it's self-trust. Trusting what you know, what you like, what you feel, what you need, and what you think, and what you deserve. And it's all valid because it's yours. And who cares what anyone else thinks? Believing your own needs. Believing that everyone has needs. These are not wants. I'm talking about needs. Like the need to belong, the need to feel valued and cherished and respected and safe. Believing in your own rights as a person. Believing that your boundary is healthy and necessary in the moment. And that you're not just being selfish or uncaring when you say no, or when you go for what you want. Trusting that your boundaries are solid. They're about you, not them, and they allow you and them to be in a place of choice. That's what's so important. That way there's no controlling, no manipulating, and therefore no fear-based interactions. And do you see how that makes for emotional safety? That's how we have to get there. Trusting what you believe. You've worked so hard on letting go of distorted beliefs such as it's selfish and uncaring not to bail your sister out once again, or rescue your partner from their choice of not wanting to be more disciplined with money. You've also been practicing focusing on what you believe in and what your values are, what your passions are, where your why is in your life. Keep focusing in on these. They will help you determine what your boundaries should be. So believing in yourself, believing in what is healthy versus what is toxic and why. Believing what healthy relationships require, what healthy self-esteem for each of those parties in that relationship requires. That's why I think there's so much education that goes into becoming healthier. I think there's a lot of psychoeducation first, then there's deep healing work within ourselves, then we start changing to the healthy behaviors. We have to have a sense of what's healthy versus unhealthy first, and then where we are. Otherwise, how are you going to know? And I want to say something really important here. When I say how are you going to know, if you are surrounded by people who don't want to better themselves, who are very afraid of you growing, and you're only listening to them, what are they going to tell you? Are they going to encourage you to take good care of yourself? Probably not. They're going to need you to be where they are. Comfortable in their own misery, perhaps. Not liking reality. They want to manipulate. They want to be passive-aggressive. They're terrified to set boundaries or be assertive. That kind of thing. And finally, we need loving, healthy support. I know that's not news. You hear me talk about it all the time. We need it. We don't just want it, we need it. No one's special and unique and exempt and can do this work all by themselves. I've seen people try, it doesn't work. You can only get so far. When you are practicing new behaviors, it's very vulnerable. It's new. You feel like new on the job. You're still trying to get your head wrapped around this stuff. There's so much to it. There's no way to learn it all and then go play it out. There's so many questions that we have every time we walk away from a new interaction. There's so many questions we have about ourselves and the people in our life and what's healthy and what's not. And the other thing is you're doing some brave stuff here. You need people who have your back. You need people who will tell you the truth, love you, not judge or otherwise have poor boundaries. They'll let you be where you are. They won't need to fix you. But they will encourage you to stand in your truth, have healthy boundaries, work on your self-confidence, be emotionally honest and not manipulate, be mature and thoughtful, be authentic and real with your feelings and your grief. And you need them to be able to do that too, or they can't support that in you. Try to get some people around you who are a little further on the path. People who will discuss with you ad nauseum, lots and lots and lots, all the scenarios you're working through right now so you can get the good mirroring back of what's normal and healthy. So you can decide how you want to operate differently. Guys, this is like learning a new language, and we all need all the help we can get early and often. Your brain, like we've talked about, needs to be convinced that it needs to change its mind about what is the right thing to do and why. We need all the validation and encouragement we can get too, because we're scared and we're not sure. And if you're going up against people who are unhealthy and they're manipulative and they're toxic and they lack boundaries, that's not easy. Especially if you grew up with people like that. Oh boy, all your little 5-year-old buttons are being pushed and you can feel 5 and helpless all over again as a grown-up. So you need lots of support that you check in with often. I know in a lot of my sessions with clients, I do a lot of this mirroring back. Like, no, that's not crazy. You're not crazy. That was unhealthy what they did. Your response was healthy because we talked through all the different things they could have done in the moment. This is a lot. It's a lot of front-loaded work. And then again, what you're going to do over time, of course, is internalize all this wonderful knowledge and understanding and wisdom. It's going to become more natural to you as it would if you were immersed in a new language and a new culture for months. After a while, you can walk down the street and talk to people with a little more fluency. But that takes a lot of practice and a lot of understanding the new language and a lot of sorting through what's healthy and what's not, where you struggle and where you're growing. Where other people struggle, we have to understand what the other person's going through too, so we know what we're dealing with. All of this builds emotional maturity. You're not defensive because you practice detachment. You have less fear that others will find you out because you've already been doing the work of truly knowing and accepting you. You're not as controlling because you've done the emotional work of acceptance of different outcomes ahead of time, instead of trying to have a certain outcome happen, like maybe they're glad that you're saying no to them, let's say, or will gladly honor your boundary and not act out. So much of this, once you get the concepts down and once you've really been doing some deeper work, is practice and risk and learn and practice and risk and learn over and over and over again. And you learn the hard way, 3 forward, 2 back. Experiment with safe people, always first. Don't do the hard people first. It's a mess. Experiment with safe people who love you and want you to be more authentic. They want you to say, no, I don't want to eat Italian tonight. They want you to ask for what you really need. They will be able to honor it. Even if they're a little at first, they'll come back to you and say, look, I'm really glad you told me the truth. Because they're going to feel closer to you and they're going to be happy for you and proud of you. These are the people, in other words, who can support what is for your highest good, which ends up being for theirs as well, because when we're more authentic, we're better people. We're so much easier to be around. We're more approachable. We're emotionally safer. They can feel more connected to who we really are and vice versa. You have to practice the external boundary work all the time, day in, day out. Saying things like, sorry, I can't. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for me. Or thank you so much, but I got this. Or I need you to clean up your room today, or you can't go out. Thank you. It means practicing detachment from manipulators and toxic people. You've heard me talk about this before. It's all about exposure. Try to limit your exposure, especially if you're trying to do some new risky behaviors. Try to detach, get away from the toxic people. Don't talk to them as much during the week. Don't share as much vulnerable stuff with them. Save that for the safe people. It's really important. Because the responses that you'll probably get are probably going to be shitty and shaming. And that's just going to wear you down. The little confidence you've started to build. That can really kick you back when you're vulnerable, and that's not good. You want to be strengthened and empowered. Another thing that helps do that is to practice your internal boundary work, your self-discipline. I think this is a big confidence booster because we're getting our shit together. Earlier in this episode, we talked about not liking some things about you that you're not taking care of or dealing with or whatever. There's no way you can feel that confident in the moment with someone if you're trying to hide that and you're afraid they're going to find out. It means facing things you've been putting off. It means becoming more structured, like getting things done, following through. Obviously, this builds self-trust. It lowers our shame and guilt. We feel cleaner. And I just tell people, or I watch clients do this naturally, is whatever's on your radar, go do it. If you get the nudge to go, I don't know, get your car taken care of, eat better, pay that bill on time, get up earlier. I don't know what it is, but one will beget the next thing. Building better habits builds better confidence. So here are some in-the-moment examples, because it's one thing to talk about this conceptually. It's another thing to road test it. So here, one example is when you need something. If you need help from somebody, you need encouragement, you need a raise, whatever it is, I want you to practice validating for yourself first. Because then you can calmly request in the kindest way. And say, hey, I really need some time off. I'd like to discuss with you when that could happen. Or I need your partnership around planning and making meals. I can't do this by myself anymore. If for whatever reason you can't, we need a different plan. Like we need to do more carryout. If you don't validate for yourself first, you're probably going to act out. And you're going to be a little angrier than you need to be. Like, I can't do this anymore. You need to step up and cook, damn it. Like, So we have to just get clear with ourselves and validate, no, it's the healthy thing I'm asking for. You don't need to get them to see how upset you are. Get them to see how important this is. You need to see that first. And then you just kindly tell other people. If they want to honor it, fine. But we can't outsource our self-esteem to them. Another one is when you need to take care of yourself and protect yourself by setting boundaries. Saying, I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. I don't allow myself to be treated that way. Or do the I've decided I need to stay home tonight and get things done. Or I need to go to bed earlier, so I can't stay out late tonight. I'll just take my own car. Or I think I want to change jobs so I can make a better salary. Or I might need to leave this relationship if things can't change for the better. I need to let go of what they want me to do and do what feels right for me. And finally, when you need to own it. To maybe admit a mistake, apologize for being snippy this morning, maybe reveal you didn't really want to go tomorrow. All those things that you own and want to show ownership for. This can be so hard if you grew up being shamed or guilted or lived in a perfectionistic home or all the above. In a home where mistakes were horrible and what is wrong with you, character assassinations were the norm. So much fear where you then also felt terrible because now you've upset them, which is so much shame on top of so much fear. All the boundary blurs. They're awful. They do so much damage. But here's the thing. Today, when you move towards the other person unprompted, it's so much better. I think you get to choose. You get to hold your power. You get to show yourself and them your confidence and humility. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect. And you don't have to be right all the time. You also demonstrate that you value honesty and responsibility, which you can feel really good about. And then you also, my gosh, validate the other person because you're owning what happened. You know how it feels when someone comes up to you and say, I'm so sorry I screwed up. You're not crazy. That was me. You're like, oh, thank you. So it resolves the issue because all the puzzle pieces get back into place where they belong. Your stuff, their stuff. Taking ownership is how you increase your self-confidence in the moment. You own what you think, what you feel, what you need to apologize for, what you struggle with, what you're not okay with, what you've decided. Now, realistically, you probably won't start out in the moment. I don't think anybody does. That only happens in the movies, guys. Remember how we've talked before about going back after the moment? Well, you probably will begin to do it this way rather than magically when you need to, and that is totally fine, and it's the way to do it. Just try to go back as soon as you can muster the courage. Sometimes it takes people a week, sometimes it takes 3 days. You'll close that gap over time because it's going to bug you to wait. Try not to serve stuff cold to others a lot because over time you can then create anxiety for them. Then they're not going to trust you. Like, they're not going to be able to trust what you say in the moment is real if you're going to come back all the time. No, that's not true. What I really meant was, or what I should have said. So, we get a brief window of grace to be able to go back. Because they thought it was all fine in the moment. So you don't want to create eggshells for them. Because you didn't say anything in the moment or pretended it was fine. Or you agreed. Right? So there's that. With safe people in your life, tell on yourself. Say, hey, I'm really going to try to be more honest with you and risk saying no and take care of myself. So I may come back to you, or I may need to think about some things before I answer instantly. Please give me some grace and understanding. I will get better at this. I will get to the point where in the moment I will be more and more able to say my truth. Believe me, most people, safe people, really want to honor that for you, and they can be so patient and forgiving. Now, sometimes it won't be appropriate for a redo, right? Sometimes you're just going to go back and really mess things up for the other person, or, telling someone you really don't want to show up for their wedding. Is that appropriate? Probably not. Just go. Or, I don't know. If it's going to hurt the other person or make a mess, that's not good. Sometimes we just let things pass, or we go to dinner and we suck it up and we try to be kind and pleasant and engage, even though we're too tired to go. But it becomes a valuable lesson for next time, right? Next time, before you open your mouth and say, yeah, dinner sounds great, you're going to check with yourself first to see if that's what you really want to do. You're going to be doing that a lot more often than you realize. And that's okay, because the more painful it is, we're like, God, I did it one more time. Why didn't I say no, damn it? Because you weren't quite ready. But all of this work that we're talking about today readies us. Every step you take empowers you to take the next one. Know that. Take comfort in that. Rely on that. Start small. With even your self-discipline first, like saying no to people who can hear no and be cool with it because they can say no. Talk often to healthy people, healthier people, about how you're working on boundaries and being authentic. Get a coach, get a therapist, join a group. Get support and accountability. Stay focused during the day, or try to whenever you can. There's no perfect here. Whenever you can do it, it's great. Just check in with how you feel, maybe what you need at the moment, what feels right and what doesn't. Do not be hard on yourself if you don't honor it. I just want you to notice. Trusting your gut, I think, is everything if you want to feel grounded in your truth. Today, I just want you to start paying more attention to what's bothering you and maybe why. Notice also where you're getting little nudges to look at something, ask for something, do something, say no to something. Your true self is guiding you. Those of you who are spiritual, you might even like the idea that you're actually being guided by a higher source. This can really help you feel less anxious and be able to relax and feel okay with it. I think it's because sometimes we're afraid to rely on ourselves, and if someone or something out there is stronger, we can lean on them for a little bit. Cool. So today we got into some of what I think are the most important pieces to becoming more confident in the moment with someone. We talked about how confidence is built by, I think, doing some core work on our boundaries, on our self-trust, on grief and detachment, and then by practicing healthier communication in the moment. By looking at some examples of how to show up more grounded, we also contrasted this with ways not to do it, ways that might be more defensive or passive-aggressive. Then we normalize the process, so you don't have to feel like you're alone or you're crazy. And if some of you are worried that you need more info and support, just hit our Facebook group or sign up for coaching with me. Thank you so much for joining me today. May you stay healthy and grounded. May you have courage to show up in the moment. Focus on the good in yourself and others this week. If you don't get the newsletter already, check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com and sign up. All right, guys, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.